limousine called the Beast. When the President of the United States is driven through the streets of Washington, D.C., or other cities around the world, he rides inside a specially modified vehicle known simply as Cadillac One, Limo One, or the Beast.
The Beast is kept in the basement of Secret Service headquarters on 8th Street. It's polished and watched at all times. To get into Secret Service headquarters parking, you have to have all kinds of clearances. It's very well protected.
One of at least two. The identical vehicles are built by General Motors. The custom-designed superstructure consists of 5-inch thick armor plating made from a combination of aluminum, titanium, ceramic, and steel. The windows can withstand armor-piercing .44 caliber bullets. Even the fuel tank is protected by a special foam designed to prevent an explosion if it suffers a direct hit.
The new vehicle that President Obama is driving is at the top of the evolutionary chart of protective vehicles. Even a lot of people within the Secret Service don't know what capabilities these vehicles have. Part of our ability to counteract people that would do us harm is they don't know exactly what capabilities we do have. And we like to keep it that way to keep the bad guys second guessing. For example, the weight of the vehicle is a very classified number, because if people know how much a vehicle weighs, they'll be able to know how much armor is in vehicles. That's why certain aspects of the vehicle are very, very tightly controlled secrets. They're classified information.
The glass in the presidential limo is about 5 inches thick. It's glass sandwiched with a very dense plastic material, and the purpose of that is to slow down the bullet as it goes through.
The bullet is actually the least dangerous element when you have normal glass, because the spall that comes off, thousands and thousands of small pieces of glass flying through the air at a very high velocity do a lot of damage. If we were to have the polycarbonate, it stops the bullet, but it also, as you can see, stopped all of the spall. So it protects the people inside not only from the bullet, but actually the more deadly threat, the glass spall.
There's a nylon or Kevlar donut inside the tires, which allows the vehicle to continue to run should somebody decide to shoot the tire out, or if you have a blowout. You can continue driving along without having to pull over and change a tire.
When a president travels and lands somewhere or takes off, the motorcade and those armor-plated limousines become part of a barrier. They always put the limousines and the rest of the motorcade between the plane and a crowd. Also, when a president goes to a crowd and shakes hands on a tarmac, both limousines are just outside the television frame, so you don't see them, but they're right there in case there's a problem.
But who is authorized to drive Limo One? And what kind of secret skills must they learn if they are to transport the president?
People are assigned to the transportation section of the Secret Service, and they are then selected. They are trained, and they train constantly.
The training that you go through encompasses everything from the ability of these vehicles to handle themselves in inclement weather. You're taught to avoid blocking vehicles. What happens if the vehicle in front of you is hit with a RPG or something like that?
Maneuvering the armor-plated beast is hard enough, but in an emergency, the limited view out of the driver's window makes it doubly difficult.
You're looking through ballistic glass, which distorts your vision. The structures that hold in windows are much different than in an everyday car. You have numerous blind spots. It's not a vehicle that is fun or comfortable to drive.
The technologies are there these days to make very strong, hardened vehicles. The problem is the technologies that someone can hold in their hands will still destroy them. The protection is having, and as you've seen in a lot of the convoys, a number of cars and really not knowing which one the person's in. If you could be protected in a car, you'd only have one rolling down the street. Well, that's just not the case. And a lot of times, they probably wouldn't be in the convoy you're looking at, because that would be the greatest decoy of all.
Safety and security are priority number one when moving the president. Advanced planning and strategic preparation are the secrets to an uneventful drive.
I think if America had a book of secrets, the one thing that the public would be surprised to see is the extent of preparation and security that goes into a presidential visit. They see certain aspects of it on TV. That planning for that visit took 5 days of 10 to 12, 14-hour days.
You don't want to get committed necessarily to just one route, but everything on that route then is surveyed. And whether it's manhole covers or whether it's buildings, all of those are looked at and taken into consideration of what may or may not pose a threat.
But even detailed planning cannot always guarantee the president's safety. In 1975, President Gerald Ford's motorcade was speeding through Hartford, Connecticut, while local motorcycle cops protected his route by leapfrogging from intersection to intersection. Meanwhile, 19-year-old James Salamites was driving home with his brother and a few friends from a local restaurant.
When I left the restaurant, I proceeded down Market Street, noticed that there was a green light, and all of a sudden, the black limousine came out of the alleyway, and I swerved quickly to move out of the way, but I hit the front fender.
The teenage driver had hit the President of the United States.
President Ford leaned over in his seat and looked directly at me, him having quite an astonished look on his face, and as soon as I saw him, my eyes lit up and I just put my head down because I says, I can't believe who I just had a car accident with.
But the specially reinforced presidential limo remained operational and quickly sped away from the scene.
It was an accident, a tragic event, which could have been worse, but it allowed the Secret Service to explore and to look at the best way to support the president in his motorcade, and we refined how we do things. What you'll see now is stationary police officers at every intersection, not allowing that potential hazard to happen.
But what if the president's limo is stopped, not by a teenage driver, but by heavily armed kidnappers, enemy aircraft, or covert terrorists? What secret weapons and counter-assault technologies might be on board the Beast? May 24th, 2011, London, England. 3 weeks after the death of Osama bin Laden, President Obama conducted a state visit to Britain under heavy security, moving about the city in a motorcade consisting of nearly 20 heavily armed vehicles. But what secret protocols were in place to enhance his safety? And why were some of the vehicles in the motorcade, known as the secure package, split off from the group?
The Secret Service's ability to protect the president is based on getting out of harm's way as fast as possible. We don't want to stay and fight. We want to get him out of there. The staying and fighting is left to other elements of the Secret Service and to the local police.
But if the president cannot escape the scene, the Beast comes equipped with several top-secret modifications designed to repel an attack.
The capabilities of these vehicles in detecting attacks is what keeps the Secret Service on the cutting edge. It's our ability to prevent an attack by recognizing what is potentially coming our way, that these vehicles are in the cutting edge of technology. The best asset that these vehicles have is the ability to detect certain potential attacks on a president of a chemical or biological radiation nature.
The Beast is an independent environment, a survival pod in the case the worst should happen. And so if, for example, there is an attack that involves nerve gas or some other kind of environmental agent, the car can be completely sealed, and it has its own oxygen supply for the protection of the occupants. It can only last for so long, and the main thing is to get the heck out of Dodge.
Other vehicles in a presidential motorcade are also believed to carry counter-assault devices commonly found on military vehicles.
In the president's motorcade, there is also a car that follows the presidential limo, who are the equivalent of SWAT teams, equipped with all kinds of devastating and advanced weaponry.
There are a lot of tactical devices. This is a very interesting one that was actually designed for the prison industries. This is a gas canister that can neutralize the entire area around that presidential limousine so that everybody outside of it, it would take about a day for them to remember their names, let alone do any harm.
There's also something called chaff. A highly metallic ballistic device blows up in the air, and it will confuse air-to-ground missiles.
Protecting the president while on the road presents many difficulties for the Secret Service. However, on January 17, 2009, an even more frightening scenario occurred when President-elect Barack Obama embarked on a 137-mile train trip from Philadelphia to Washington, D.C. This old-fashioned whistle-stop tour evoked memories of past presidents, such as Franklin Roosevelt and Harry Truman, who made similar trips campaigning across the country. But this nostalgic form of travel left the president to be open to a variety of security risks.
This was probably one of the biggest security nightmares for the Secret Service in the modern history of the presidency.
Pray for us. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
He's riding a train. He's not in the special presidential limo or in Marine One. He's stopping at a lot of small places. He's exposing himself.
In a perfect world for the Secret Service, the president's schedule would never be announced in advance. We know it takes quite a bit of time for our enemies to plan and to plot, and so the less advance notice they have, the better.
Today, it is virtually impossible to move the president without the press, the public, and potential enemies knowing about it. But there was once a time when a president could slip out of the White House and get a little privacy on a luxury yacht called the USS Sequoia. A 104-foot wood-hull ship known as Navy One. It served a unique purpose in World War II. The Sequoia provided Franklin D. Roosevelt and Harry Truman a secure location to plan their war strategy.
Roosevelt worked on D-Day on the Sequoia with military leaders from the United States and from Europe. And following on that, Truman reportedly decided to drop the atomic bomb from the Sequoia.
The USS Sequoia was retired from service in 1977. 33 years after the sale of the original Navy One yacht, a new terrestrial transport has been added to the presidential fleet, one that meets the needs of today. A high-tech, heavily armed bus called Ground Force One. In July 2010, the Secret Service rolled out 2 new additions to the fleet of presidential vehicles. Megabuses, known as Ground Force One. Each sleek black coach is a converted 45-foot-long vehicle designed by the Secret Service and built in Tennessee by Hemphill Brothers at a cost of $1.1 million each. The Secret Service ordered the buses to save money. Previously, the agency would have to rent and retrofit a bus each time one was needed for the president.
There's a whole series of agencies that are coordinated in building out that vehicle and designing the vehicle, putting in different features, run flat tires, protective coatings and armoring and protective systems that would go into any protective platform for the president. A really extensive communications package. And then essentially all the features that you would want to see for a senior executive, office equipment, a suite of situational awareness tools to include access to television, radio, things of that nature as well. And this is the first time that they specifically designed a bus and are keeping a bus in inventory that was designed for the express purpose of transporting and protecting the president and other high-level Secret Service protectees. In using the bus, it's typically for the express purpose of being seen and transporting the president through a series of towns and remote areas where the president doesn't typically go. And as a result of that, there's a desire usually on the part of the staff to advertise where the president's going to be so that people can line the routes and be able to see him. And all that, of course, is anathema to the general Secret Service protective methodology.
President Obama used Ground Force One in 2011 during a barnstorming trip across the Midwest.
How are you, sir? Good to see you again.
The coach solved many logistical problems facing those responsible for moving the president.
It was very difficult to daisy chain Air Force One, Marine One, the presidential limo from stop to stop to stop. Presidential motorcades tie up traffic and create havoc. I mean, moving the president around is a big pain in the butt. So the bus makes what you might call short internodal transportation much more convenient for the president and the entourage.
While traveling by bus was logistically easier than by plane or motorcade, it presented a new security challenge for the Secret Service.
From an engineering and technology standpoint, Ground Force One might be a more difficult vehicle to up-armor. One of the weapons that must keep the Secret Service up at night is the Barrett 50 caliber sniper rifle, which fires a round about that long and has a standoff kill capacity of a mile. It will knock down a commercial aircraft. And it's legal for sale in a lot of states in the United States. So that's something that must worry the Secret Service more than air-to-ground missiles. How do you stop that bullet that once it's flying through the air? I don't think they know.
In case of emergency, the bus is said to contain a fire suppression system and tanks of oxygen in the event of a chemical attack. And just as is the case everywhere the president travels, the bus carries a supply of the commander-in-chief's blood. But who has the special skills necessary to operate the massive megabus?
Within the Secret Service, there's a specific group of people who do a tour of duty as drivers of the limousine. And from that group, they select a specific subset that then go through enhanced training that's specific for commercial vehicles to ensure that they can apply some of the same methodologies that they would in a limousine to driving the bus.
No matter what form of transport, the secret to moving the president safely is ultimately found in the capable hands of the men and women trained and ready to protect him.
You have the president's safety in your hands, much as the same way you as a parent would have your family's life in your hand. Only it happens to be the President of the United States, and it's not the family car, it's now the presidential limo.
Being a pilot on Air Force One, I think, is just a surreal experience. Watching the president walk to your airplane from the Marine helicopter is just an unbelievable feeling, and the responsibility that you feel is overwhelming.
As the threats facing the president grow in the 21st century in complexity and cunning, the Secret Service, using the most advanced and heavily defended vehicles ever made, is more than ready to successfully and